putting this together again. So we got Nichole Fecteau and Daniel Borrero on. So morning, well, afternoon for you folks, but it is morning for me out in Hawaii. So hopefully you folks are staying warm. But let's quickly get into it. So maybe Daniel, you can give a quick 60-second spiel on who you are, where you invest, and kind of your journey in real estate.
Sure. So my name is Dan Borrero. I've been a real estate investor since 1989. I've been self-employed since 1985. Um, I've literally been put through the gamut of this business. We've done everything from commercial, residential, uh, land development, land flipping, real estate flipping. We pretty much go wherever the business is at, and we've learned how to pivot and adjust according to where the market is going.
Very nice, very nice. So before we dig into that, maybe Nichole, you can also give a quick spiel on where you invest, what's your journey in real estate, and yeah.
Absolutely. Forgive my dogs for barking in the background. They do this whenever I'm live. So, um, I'm Nichole Fecteau. I live up in Maine, and I'm a real estate agent for about 16 years now. I am heavily involved in development from the perspective of advising my developers. I work with about 4 or 5 serious developers right now who are doing anything from purchasing raw land and putting it through planning process to buying projects for like multifamilies, whatever. I serve as the chairman of my planning board, and I've served on that for about over 11 years now, which also keeps my finger on the pulse of that stuff.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, so I was looking through your folks' social media pages and things like that also. So there is Dan's Instagram page, his YouTube page, Nichole's Facebook. So if you folks want to subscribe, follow them, connect with them, there it is right there. Most people in my community already know Gus too, so he's in the school community with us. But I want to quickly dig into Dan. I know you've been in this game for a long time. It seems like a lot of maybe even your name, land ventures, right? So maybe are you still in that side of the real estate? Are you still doing land,
Yeah,
buying
so
land?
I am doing land. I'm just not doing it as much. So look, when people ask me advice on how to do this business right, I have multiple questions for them because the level that we do this business at, it totally depends on where we're at in our life point in that particular time and moment, right? It also depends on what our financial responsibilities are, or how financially good we're doing at the moment, what our risk tolerance may be. Um, so, I no longer do it at the volume I was doing the land flipping at because I don't have to. And I'm not trying to say that to be boisterous, but I'm going to be 63 years old in 3 months. Um, and all my kids graduated from college with no student debt. We got, my wife and I have absolutely no debt. So now it's at a point where, yeah, I'm still working, but I'm not working as much. Um, because we're looking to enjoy the money we've accumulated rather than continue to chase it, right? We've got more years behind us than we do in front of us. So yeah, I mean, I still love the land business. I don't do it as often as much as I used to. At one point, we used to do about 1,500 lots a month throughout the state of Florida. About 1,000 of those lots were wholesale. Another 500 would be retail. We didn't make much on the wholesale side, maybe about $500 a lot, but 1,000 unit lots a month, it adds up, right? So yeah, it's a great business. It's a very inexpensive side of the business to start in if you truly want to get involved and make some immediate cash. But the thing that I want to share the most about that business is just like fix and flips, right? We would take our fix and flip money as well as our land flipping money, and then we would come back to New York and we were buying multifamily properties, coming in with 40-50% down payments, right? And then eventually we kept buying in the state of Florida, and those we would actually buy out for all cash because the acquisition cost was so much less. Same thing in the state of New Jersey. So I just want people to also know when you're doing fix and flips and land flipping, You're only as good as your last deal. So make sure you take that money and reinvest it into your long-term goals, because that's where the real dollars are at.
Very interesting. Now, so Nicole, for you, like before we went live, you were talking about kind of your story a little bit to me, and you're trying to come off as being not an investor really, or maybe a smaller investor, right? But
Yeah.
but I think the fact that you have investments as a realtor is kind of the important thing there, because I do see a lot of realtors that don't ever get into the investing side or owning things, right? So how was that? Were you a realtor first, or did
Yeah.
you start? Oh,
So I was a realtor first. Listen, I'm a single mom, and while my children are adults now, I've always been a single mom, one income. I'm the only person I have to fall back on, kind of a deal. So for the first, I don't know, 10 years of being a real estate agent, I was just scraping by trying to make a dollar, right? And probably about 6 years ago is when I made the first dollar that I could really take and invest. And I got started literally because I'm on my planning board. Like I said, we have big development going on in our downtown area. I know the vision and I know what's going to happen here in the future. So I knew that in my town, like I wanted to invest in it because I want to create some generational wealth for my family, my boys. Was on a listing appointment at a multifamily right downtown, like literally 2 houses from downtown. And I walked in and I had no business saying like, okay, I'm going to buy this. And I wasn't thinking about buying, wasn't pre-approved. I already owned a home. Didn't think I could handle 2 mortgages, that kind of thing. But I just knew it was an opportunity that I couldn't turn down. So that's kind of how I got started. I own a 4 unit. My kids are some of my tenants, which is awesome because I can make them work for me. But yeah, I feel like I'm kind of on the smaller side of the investing part of it. But I provide like daily. I probably get 20 to 25 messages from my developers like, "Hey, what do you think about this? Hey, what do you think about this?" And they really trust me because of my own expertise. And if I'm going to be reselling something, a lot of them are buying a project or buying something and with the intent of me reselling it. I won't let them buy anything that I'm not 100% confident that I will be able to sell at the price that I tell them.
all right. So it seems most of us have kind of been in the real estate space for some time now. But would you guys, maybe Dan can go first, but is today's real estate market actually hard, or are people just soft?
Ooh, nasty. I want to hear what Dan has to say too.
Well,
He's a New
first of all,
Yorker.
well, I just wanna add something to what you said before we go to that question. It's funny. My students, I'm constantly telling them, you know, if you're going to be in this business, you want to connect with a realtor that actually also invests. Not only do they have the insight and understand our pain points, but
Yeah.
also have and understand our concerns, right? But they also have access to the service providers, those contractors, the painters, the plumbers, electricians, the architects, So my hat's off to you. Um,
Thanks.
give me the question again because I want to make sure I don't mess that up.
In today's real estate, is today's real estate market actually hard, or are people just soft?
Now, I personally think there's a ton of opportunity now, right? The problem is that I think people are fearful again. And and I'll give you guys an example. I used to feel embarrassed when I'd go on a podcast or a live, and people would be talking about how bad they suffered. Other investors are talking about how bad they suffered from the 2008 catastrophe, and I really wouldn't say anything at this point. I don't feel bad about saying it anymore. I got extremely wealthy as a result of 2008. Um, when the news is reporting fear, the news outlets get paid to scare you.
Hmm.
And Warren Buffett, I don't know the exact quote, but he was saying basically when people are fearful is when you have to go in and buy, and that's pretty much the same attitude that I take with real estate. But it also, you have to do your research. In the last year, since and this is not a political statement, this is just reality. This is how I make my money, right? And to pivoting and anticipating. So within the last year, we've depending on what articles you read, anywhere between a million to 1.3 million jobs have been lost. We have the highest rate of car repossession since 2009. We have the highest rate of consumer delinquency rate, literally since 2009, 2010. So when you have people that can't afford to pay their car loans or their credit cards or their student loans, it's easy to anticipate that they're not going to be able to afford their their rent payments. So now when you look back and you look at all the loans that were given out, the majority of the loans that were given out to multifamily investor developers, right? Those were variable rates. So now they're no longer 2 and 3%, and they were calculating their cash flow on those ridiculously low rents, low interest rates rather, right? Now that the interest rates are higher, now that the taxes are higher, now that the cost to operate is higher because the cost of materials through the roof and the cost of labor is going through the roof, right? As a result of so much labor being deported, right? And again, this is not a political statement, people. Um, you know, yes, there's pain, and for those of us that are prepared, right, to bail out those individuals that didn't prepare, we're going to be paid handsomely for being prepared, and we're going to be paid handsomely for resolving someone else's problems, right? That's what we do as entrepreneurs. Yes, we're real estate investors, but essentially we are entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs get paid to resolve problems. So, if you took the time out to prepare financially and educationally, you're going to be you when you see the opportunities, you're going to be able to take advantage of them. But the fear comes into the fact that when you're not prepared. And I had a high school coach, Mr. Barkita, and he used to say, fatigue breeds cowardness, and that's why he made us run like crazy and work out like crazy, so that on the field when we were tired, we didn't get tired, because if we got tired, then we were too scared to make that hit or get hit. So I've always taken that saying that I in high school from my high school coach into my entire life, right? Fatigue breeds cowardness. So be prepared is what I'm saying. That way you could adjust, adapt, and pivot.
That was a very nice way to put it. Now I want Gus to take off the reins because I'm trying to get Gus to get out of his shell a little bit. So, what is your thoughts? Is people soft today, or what?
It's like he's trying to set me up to say people are soft.
That's gonna be the sound bite. Like, we're just gonna
Yeah.
isolate that and just blast it. I'm putting you on blast as soon as you say it.
I mean, yeah, I mean, let's think about it. I mean, has things got more difficult as far as real estate, like where interest rates, or we have a social media, so now everyone's learning how to do real estate, and the real estate is a nice shiny tool now that everyone wants to jump in. Yes, but that doesn't make it any more difficult. Well, for me, everyone told me, "Oh, this is not the right time to go ahead and invest. You got to hold off. You got to wait till the market crashes." Tell me how that makes sense. Tell me that I've been waiting my whole life to be put in a situation for me to go ahead and buy real estate finally. I got my credit in order. I was able to build up capital as far as being a real estate agent. And now the time for me to go ahead and double down and create a path for me as far as ownership. Everyone's telling me it does. You don't do it. It's risky right now. And those are the type of people that are not giving you advice. It doesn't matter if the market's at the top or the market's at the bottom. And I like where the market is right now because everyone's scared because they're going on their phones, they're looking on social media, they're listening to these fools. Zuber was just on a podcast with a fool. And then let me take
I'm clipping that one right there.
Zuber was on a podcast where a guy was speaking very negative. He's like, I've been investing for 10 years and so on and so on. If you've been investing for 10 years and you're speaking about real estate in a negative matter that you're doing it, you're not doing it right. And Zuber went on to go ahead and ask him distinct questions. How are you finding your deals? What are you putting in disrespectful offers? He went on to say yes. Let's just think about it. We all are investors, or we know investors. When have you put down an offer and the offer was a good offer on your end, you got the property, and it was a bad deal. That, especially after 10 years later, that doesn't make sense. So what we're seeing now in 2026 is a whole bunch of people that are just whining, a whole bunch of people that are just soft. Because if you have to go out there and find a way to eat, guess what? You're going to find a way to eat. If there's properties and opportunities out there and whatever I'm doing isn't working, that means I'm not doing the right thing, because I can look to my buddy to the right of me and he's taking down properties and he's putting himself in a great position. Why am I not doing it? So that's when you got to get out of your comfort zone and you got to go ahead and talk to other people, find out what they're doing, and you need to implement those particular things. So if you're telling me if people are soft right now, I 100% agree, but that's fine. Be soft. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to take advantage of these opportunities when everyone's at home scared, and I'm going to continue to buy these properties, and I'm going to continue to get wealthy. And I'm not going to be ashamed to talk about it, because a lot of people are ashamed to talk about it. I'm not. Because you know why? Because I put in the work to be able to go ahead and find these opportunities to change my life. And that's what it takes. It takes one person to change a generation in a family. Are you going to be that person, or are you not going to be that person? That's the choice that you have to go ahead and make.
All right, I got my clips for the week.
Yes.
But Brady
Send those
Morgan
to me.
is saying Gus ain't wrong. All Nighter Hider says, to Gus's point, the doomers are suggesting to wait for something outside your control before investing. No thanks. And Yasik, who's in New Jersey, I think he actually might be in Pittsburgh right now. He traveled to Pittsburgh, but let them do it. More deals for those that do the homework. Yep. So Nichole, are you having these tough conversations with your clients right now?
My clients are all pretty tough and hardcore dudes. So I love Daniel's energy, because that is exactly, I work with a lot of investors from Massachusetts up here in Maine, and you absolutely remind me of that. It's grit, right? It's grit. It's the willingness to suffer, which to Gus's point about saying how people are soft nowadays, I think we all remember that. It's that people are unwilling to suffer, and they're not. We're in an instant gratification society where people want to see, huge gains right away, and it's just not. We're not in that market. It's not feasible, and the guys that have been doing it since 1989 know that. And God bless you, you should be out celebrating your wins and enjoying the wealth you've created, because I'm sure you suffered for years through that.
My the biggest thing I try, and Gus has been to I do a free mentorship class on Wednesday nights to give back to the community. Gus has been there a couple of times.
Sorry, quick. So do you have a link for that? If you want to put in a private chat,
If they go to landlordcornerstore.com, it's there to sign up for it. But Gus has been kind enough to attend and put his input. Am I correct, Gus?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So the biggest thing I try to tell people is that unless you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth, it takes sacrifice, right? There were years. There was one time. It's funny. I almost went bankrupt with this one property in Park Slope, Brooklyn. So if anybody's familiar with Park Slope, Brooklyn, it's a very affluent place right now. And my accountant, my attorney, they're telling me, listen, just declare bankruptcy, and I was like, I just can't do that. That would just be admitting that I failed, So, I mean, I emptied out my wife's 401k, sold both our cars. We were taking public transportation for literally almost 3 years before we were able to buy a used Toyota Tercel, just so my wife could have something, pick up the kids instead of taking the bus, right? So, but looking back, I mean, we still own that property, and now that property is worth over $6.5 million, and it gives us about $28,000 a month just on that one property, cash flow. That's my net on that property, right? So, the point is that if you're not willing to do the hard work and the suffering and live below your means, just keep working for someone else. The truth is, like, I just had a conversation with someone that one of our students asked me to do a 30-minute consultation with her, and she's asking, like, how does she get there? How does she get her first property? And I'm like, all right, let's talk about where you're at. And she's 35 years old. She's a single mom, but she lives at home. Mom and dad pay all the bills. She has a professional job that she works about approximately. She's a teacher, so she works approximately 180 days a year. But she only has $12,000 saved. And I'm like, how is this possible? How long you've been a teacher? I've been a teacher for 12 years. I says, well, then, there's a problem here. The problem isn't the market. The problem isn't society. The problem is your unwillingness to go get a second job. I said, do you do any tutoring after school? What time do you get out? She says, I'm out by 2:30. I says, so are you doing any tutoring after school? No. Are you doing tutoring on the weekends? No. Do you have another job or another career that you could do on the weekends? No. I says, why not? Well, I want to spend time with my son. Okay, well then you can't have both, right? And anybody that tries to tell me that when you're self-employed, there's a way to do a work-life balance, that's a lie. Because I haven't found anybody that's an entrepreneur that is successful that has done it, right? I mean, and do I feel guilty at times for not having spent more time with my kids? Yes. But would they have been able to get a college education with no student debt? No, right? Would I have been able to provide the vacations that we even currently take with our adult kids? We go on vacation 3 times a year with my adult kids, and my wife and I, the bill's paid for, right? We spend our money on memories, on moments. So, there's a give and take. So you got to make that decision. No, it's, to me, is it a different market? Do you have to attack the market differently than when I did it when I first started? Absolutely. If you don't change, you're going to get left behind. But it's still the level of difficulty. It's just a matter of you making the decision on how much you're willing to sacrifice.
Yeah, to that point, Yasik, like I said, who's in Jersey, says, "Can't make progress in investing if giving up your latte sounds like the end of the world."
So true. And these days, I mean, this is God bless us. I have adult children, and unfortunately, our generation, I'm in Gen X, our generation, because we had a bunch of parents that didn't really care that much about what we were out doing. Our generation is overcompensating by giving our children these beautiful, cushy lives and getting them everything. My kids have like zero interest in investing or living uncomfortably at all. And it's there's a whole study of generations that just shows that this is actually part of a repeating pattern, and this is just how it's going to be. But fortune favors the intrepid. And when I bought my building, I lived in a shitty apartment. Like, I went from a beautiful house to living in a shitty apartment for a couple of years. I'm almost embarrassed. Like, when people find out, like, I'm nobody, but I'm a well-known person in my area, and people were like, "Oh gosh, you live in," we call it the ghetto. It's not the ghetto, but you know what I mean. But yeah, it's the willingness to be uncomfortable, and really uncomfortable, like taking public transportation. Can you imagine anybody below the age of 30 nowadays doing 3 years of public transportation to buy a multifamily? Like, I can't. I would love to meet those people. I love those people. I love their energy. Those are the people I like. But man, right now, the generations, that's kind of dying. It'll come back, for history shows, but whew,
But it's
they're
going to be
soft.
free. But it's going to be free in New York soon, right? The public.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Free in New
I
York.
thought we're not getting political.
Yeah, I
Please
was.
don't bring me there. You don't want to hear me go on a rant.
Well, okay. You know what? That is actually where, not politically, but a lot of the content I've seen recently on your Instagram page, I think, is a lot more landlord focused now. Is that correct?
Because I'm, like, as I said, I believe in pivoting and going in the direction that the market takes you in, right? And right now, I've been getting tons and tons of calls, one-on-one consultations that they're hiring me for. And I would say 8 out of the 10 calls have to do with landlording issues. And the whole thing is that, it's all about the process and the systems you have in place, and not negotiating those process and systems, especially when you're vetting a tenant, right? I don't negotiate with tenants. I don't negotiate my process or my systems if a realtor tells me that I'm being overzealous or I'm being too difficult. I'm like, not an issue. Go find somebody else that's gonna give you an easier way to provide your commission. If you are looking for a relationship, I'm the guy to be with, because I'm the guy who's gonna be in this forever. I'm not going to retire to go traveling. I'm still going to have my properties. I'm still going to travel. But if you're looking for a quick commission, I'm not that guy. So if you're looking to, and Gus, am I lying? How many times have I said this in the mentorship classes, or even when you and I have spoken, right? You don't negotiate your process and your systems. When you have something that works, you stick to it. So hence the reason why I'm pushing my social media more into landlording, because I find a lot of people are learning how to buy the property, negotiate the property, get financing for the property, renovate the property. But the real thing to learn is how to manage that tenant, how to manage that property, how to manage your service providers, where do you find those service providers? How do you manage your team, and who's part of your team? And how do you find those team members? How do you integrate those team members, different personalities into the team so that it works well, right? And understanding is sometimes team members have to get rid of, right? You have to get rid of them, just like a baseball team that won the World Series. Next year they got rid of 3 of their stars, right? You're scratching your head like, why? Because there might be stuff that's happening in the background you don't see, right? So hence the reason why I'm getting more into the landlording side of my social media.
There is a few that I'd love to dig into. There was one that you just kind of put out recently, and I think that's the one I shared also on my page. But I didn't. You said a tenant robbed you of 18K.
18K.
Yes.
So she was that was the one I posted this morning, actually.
Yeah.
So I had a tenant that I was renting to for approximately 4 years. UPS driver, great guy. I mean, he salt of the earth type of personality. If you had a problem with him, you're the problem, right? And gets married, and his wife was the total opposite, where the person who fights with everybody in the building, everybody's got a problem with her in the building. So he ends up divorcing her a couple of years later. He leaves. He just left and left me his headache, but because of and actually he was extremely apologetic. I mean, this man called me like over the course of like 2 years. He must have called me at least 3 or 4 times to apologize. So, but with the laws in the city of New York, I just can't kick her out. So I had to keep her, and I had to give her a lease, and she drove me nuts. So, but because of the systems that I have in place, I would enforce the rules. And if it means I take her to court to enforce those rules, so be it. If it means it costs me $2,000, so be it. It's the process, right? You have to take step by step by step, to the point where she now knew she had to leave. But because she knew that she had to leave, she was like, you know what? I'm just not going to pay rent. Let the judges kick me out. So at the time, it would take about a year to 16 months to get rid of a tenant that fought well in the court system. Now it could take up to 3 years, believe it or not. So I made a deal with her in court, and we signed what this called a stipulation. And the stipulation says, you owe me 6 months. As long as you get out by the end of the month, I won't go after you for the money, right? But it never says that I relinquish that debt, right? It says you owe it, but I won't go after you for it. I won't take any legal action to go after you for it, right? So, hence 7 years later, she's now looking for a co-op. She actually, she first reached out to me when she was looking for a co-op. She got turned down by the co-op board because they see that she had a tenant landlord action, a housing report, right? And her argument was that she wasn't evicted. She left voluntarily. And I was, you're right, you left voluntarily. She says, what's the problem? So what's the problem? She says, well, I want you to write a letter that I wasn't evicted. I says, well, I never put anything on your report that says that you were evicted. That's between you and the housing court. Go argue with housing court. So, of course, she comes back, but this time she comes back to an attorney like 6 months later, because apparently she kept going to other condo boards, and now she went from co-ops to condos trying to buy something in the city, and they would turn it down. So the last place was like, if you could show us proof that, from the current landlord, documented proof, notarized that you weren't evicted and that, all monies were paid, we'll we'll give you access. We'll approve this application. So she owed me $18,000, and of course her lawyer was trying to intimidate me, but that doesn't work out well from a guy from Brooklyn. So I eventually got $16,000 from her, and that just happened actually on Friday, and the funds were wired into my account by Friday at 3 o'clock. So I got $16,000 out of an $18,000 debt. The point is, the reason that was there was because I kept recertifying the judgment as well, right? Because judgments stay intact for so many years, depending on what state, what county you're in, what city you're in. Sometimes you got to reinstate those judgments every 5 years, every 7 years. You want to keep that on their files, right? So eventually, if they get a job, I've had a person who was selling a house, but because my judgment was on his credit, the title company would not transfer title, clear title, to the buyer unless that judgment was satisfied. And I got that judgment satisfied. It was like 13 years later, and it came out with about 12% interest annually, right? So it's the process that you have in place and the systems that you have in place. But I want people to know it's not an easy business. Not an easy business.
No, I have a developer that once said to me, every dealing with your tenant, every text, every email, whatever, is preparing you for a lawsuit. And always
Correct.
keep that in mind. Whenever
Correct.
you send a text message, an email, phone call, whatever, that's preparing you for a lawsuit. And I've always kept that in mind. And thank God I did. And I tell all my landlords the same. It was super advice.
Absolutely.
So Dan, I see people commenting kind of about maybe investing in landlord-friendly areas. Is that something? I know it sounds like you have a mentorship, and do you have people investing primarily in landlord-friendly areas, or kind of just
At
what?
this point, my daughter wanted to buy wants to buy a 3-family brownstone in Brooklyn, and I'm cringing. I'm like, no, please don't. Um, yeah, it's hence one of the reasons why we started buying in Florida was because it's a much easier place to be a landlord. I've only had to evict 2 people in Florida since 2009. Um, and they were both there when I purchased the place. It wasn't tenants that I placed, but the one that took me the longest, she was from Bushwick. She was from Bushwick, Brooklyn, and she was trying to use the tactics that they do here in New York. There, it didn't really go too well for her, but it went better for her than most. It took me about almost 100 days to get rid of her. The other person only took me about 45 days. So, versus here in New York, if they dig in their heels, it could cost you 3 years. That hasn't happened to me. I rarely go to court with a tenant, and that's primarily because of the personality traits that we look for. Besides, we're not looking for tenants that could only afford it. We're looking for tenants that have a specific personality trait, and that primary personality trait is a personality that wants to have a resolution rather than enjoying the drama. So, and I'll give you, if you can, I give you another story if you don't mind, something that recently happened. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah. So about must have been, it was last year. A tenant comes home. I had just been in a different job site Friday night. I got home, must have been about 7 o'clock. My guys were working late that day to finish the turnover on this unit. And I get home, unload my truck into the garage. I'm not going back to any job sites for a week. And I come up the stairs starving, take a shower. And just as I get ready to eat, phone rings. And it's a tenant for one of my properties that says she's getting profusive water coming into her apartment from the apartment above. So as I'm instructing her what to do, now I'm putting on my work clothes again. And she goes upstairs and she's banging on the door, and I can hear the tenant upstairs. She says, "What's wrong?" And she says, "I got water coming." And she tells her what's going on. She says, "Oh my God." She starts screaming, and I can hear her running. They're both running. And apparently the tenant above came home from a hard day's work, was filling up the tub with hot water to take a warm bath. She got a phone call, got preoccupied with the phone call in the bedroom, didn't realize the tub was overflowing and ruined the entire ceiling in the kitchen, bathroom, and dining room in the apartment below. So now I hang up the phone. I call up my guys. I have really good workers. They all said, the three guys said, yeah, we'll be there, no problem. I pick up my all the equipment I possibly could think of out of one of the sheds on the way home that we have where we store our equipment. And we were there until 5 o'clock in the morning, ripping down that ceiling, taking down insulation, moving all her furniture, sealing off the other side of the apartment so the dust doesn't get in there, putting in the dehumidifiers. It was an all out battle, right? Because you don't want that moisture there because then you have to deal with the mold, right? So I said to her, I says, look, this is going to be a 5-day job. She says to me, no worries, Danny, I'll go to my mother's house. She gave me the keys. She wasn't like this, how inconvenient this was, how unfair it was. She wasn't about the drama. She was like, what do you need me to do to help you resolve this? Those are the personality traits we're looking for, right? I don't want to walk onto a job like that. You telling me about how stressful it's in, because it's not any more stressful to you than it is to me, because I'm the one who's got to be here, manage it, and pay for it.
Yep. Yep. Do you have caveats in your lease? So I actually love that because I work with a few landlords that do exactly that. So I'll pre-screen the tenants, I'll meet them, and if I feel like with my senses they have that personality, like a good person, handshake, that kind of I call the other kind of person a professional tenant. So
Correct.
the tenants that have all the laws figured out, they're on the internet, they're on Reddit. But I have landlords that put tenants in just like you do, and they insist on coming out and shaking hands with the tenants once I've cleared them for that. Do you have caveats in your lease? So the first week I was a landlord, and I was living in that shitty apartment, and I had my tenants that I inherited above me stomping all over the place. I woke up in the middle of the night. I sleep with earplugs. Woke up in the middle of the night. It sounded like rain. And I was like, that's weird. It was October. I'm like, that's weird because I have earplugs on. No, it was their toilet overflowing right next to my head as I'm laying there. It was like, oh. And one of my, it was so disgusting. I was like, this is gross. I can't do this, but I did it. I have grit. But one of my landlords, one of the leases that I use with him has a caveat in there for, if the plumbing gets clogged because of you, or if there is some kind of a water fault because of you. So do you have something like that? And is that legal in New York?
We do. However, it all depends on the judge that you get to enforce it.
Oh,
right?
gosh. So
And then
judicial over there. Yeah.
8 to 9 months to get in front of a judge.
Wow.
Right. So one of the caveats we do have is that I can't force them to get apartment insurance.
Okay.
I could put it into the lease, but it's not something that's enforceable by the courts.
Oh.
But I do have those conversations with the tenant, and I also give them pamphlets to 3 different insurance companies that they can use.
That's smart.
Use to get it, right? So they don't have to go searching for it.
Yeah.
And in their inbound package, because I get an email with reiterating everything, we get the links to those 3 insurance companies as well. Right now, as far as my lease is concerned, my lease is not negotiable, but it's approximately 9 pages long, the addendum, and I cover everything. I've been sued 3 times, saying that I was overzealous for deductions from the security deposit.
Good for you.
Yeah,
right.
And I've never lost. I've never lost, but every time I've gone to court because they were suing me, accusing me of being overzealous, I countersue. Because there's always things I see actually when my guys are actually in the apartment turning it over that I may not have seen prior to sending them their security deposit back. Then I'm going to add that in because since they're taking me to court, I might as well add it in now, right? So, my argument to the judge is all these charges are listed. So all of my charges are listed on my lease. So if they leave the refrigerator dirty, this is how much it is. If they leave the light fixtures dirty, this is what it is. If they leave the bathroom or the kitchen or the for every piece of furniture I have to remove, this is what it is. For every bag of garbage that I have to fill and remove, this is what it is.
That's
Right?
so smart. That's so,
Right?
I've
So
never seen that. That's brilliant, by the way.
it saves me, because now what happens is that if, assuming I make deductions, and most of the time I really don't, because my tenants are really good. It's rare that I make deductions. So if I do make deductions, it's legitimized, because when the tenant notifies me that they're leaving, the first thing they get, certified return receipt, as well as an email, is saying, hey, refer back to this section of the lease, article so and so I don't have to make the deductions. This is what's expected on your behalf when you vacate. Right now, I come in and I'm taking pictures, right? And then not only am I taking pictures, I'm sending them the pictures, the costs of the estimated invoice, and a copy, assuming I could get it out, the checks are cashed in enough time. I'll even send them copies of the paid invoice and copies of the checks that we used to pay those invoices.
Wow.
So when they get their security deposit backs, they're getting an itemized list of everything that was deducted and the documented proof why it was deducted. Now, when we go to court, right, when they've taken me to small claims court, my argument to the judge is, all right, judge, they agreed to these charges when they signed the lease, number one. Number two, I notified them, what section of the lease to review, so I wouldn't have to, so they knew what they had to do, so I wouldn't have to make these deductions. And I did everything according to the law. I got out the security deposit within the time frame that's provided to me within the law, within that state, that city, that county, right? I gave them all the documented proof that I actually had those expenditures. What else could I have done, Judge? I've never looked.
So smart. So smart. I'm writing that down to tell my landlords, because I think that is, honestly, that's super advice. Super advice.
Guys, I have a copy of that lease too. It's on, Landlord Corner Store. I came up with this website because people are constantly calling me up too. Where did you buy this? Where do I buy that?
Yeah.
So I actually put all the links to where I buy all my materials, cleaning supplies, everything is there. Tools, everything.
Dan, you were mentioning, plumbing contractors, and maybe Gus can chime in here also. But one of your Instagram reels was also talking about negotiating with contractors isn't just about price. I know Gus does a lot of rehab work also. So how would you approach talking to contractors, Gus?
Well, new contractors, what the guys that I work with repetitively, you kind of know what their prices are. Sometimes may get used to someone else, and then they'll try to come back to you with the prices that they're charging someone else, and be like, no, this is not what we're doing. But for new contractors, you want to let them know, hey, this is not just a one-time thing. This is can be something we're going to be doing multiple times. You want to actually talk to them like what you're talking about, because once they smell a sucker, they're going to go ahead and stick it to you. So sometimes what I do is, I'll bring in my contractor with a new contractor. So let's say my contractor's working on another job. I'll bring him there while they're saying things. He knows what to do. He's asking them questions. Oh, yeah, so that's $2 a foot, right? And they're like, yeah. It's like, oh, okay. So we're not going to be able to get this guy. But, I'm not the most skilled as far as knowledge, as far as that. But I got a guy that I consistently give him work that he's going to protect me as much as possible when it's time for me to deal with other contractors. I would say, and Dan brought this up also, landlording and then doing rehabs are things that get overlooked. The thing that gets all the glory is when you are there at the closing and you're holding up the sign that we just closed, and all the make-believe numbers that you write down that we're going to cash flow this, that, and the third. But then when all that dust settles and what's left is you and your building, if these things that we're talking about right now, you're not able to execute, as soon as you receive that building, is as soon as that building is going to leave you, and you're going to be wondering why, what happened, where did I make the mistakes? Where you made the mistakes is not to continue to learn. And then I would ask you this question. You've been in the game. You just dropped a lot of nuggets for us. Are you still learning in real estate?
You know, in life, you're always learning, right? So, and the day you think you know everything, you're done.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
done. And
One thing
the day
one
you
thing
know,
that Dan said, he said, "Hey Gus, remember you were in my community? You went to a few of my things. I'm in Zuber's community. I tend to go to anywhere I can be in a real estate space. I want to go ahead and do it. Now, am I paying $10,000, $20,000? Fuck no, I'm not doing that. But what I am doing is some guys that I believe in that prove it day in, day out. Like Dan posts every single day, and I'm watching them. And then I talked to him. I was like, this guy's really doing it. So this is someone I want to be close to. And then Dan says, hey, I got a free mentorship. That's something I want to go in because I want to be the best form of myself as far as an investor. So I have to be around. There's masterminds I'm in. Any space that I'm in, if I want to be the best, I got to be around like-minded people and be able to learn from them. You can have one building or you can have 1,000 buildings. That doesn't mean that I can't learn from you. So I want to be around people that are doing that. So I'm able to walk into situation. That situation I just talked about, what me having my main contractor there when I'm meeting other contractors, I learned that from someone else. The person was being honest and genuine, saying, hey, when it comes to this, I'm not the best, but here's how I keep myself protected. I had my main guy look out for him, and I bring him when I'm meeting new guys. And I was like, huh, that's me. You know, I could try to fake it as much and try to learn it. But if I have my right-hand man who he has consistent work, he's taking care of his family, he lives in one of my buildings, he's going to look out for my best interest, because if I go down, it's going to be a tough time for him to find consistent work. So keep educating yourself. The journey is not done when you just close on a house. The journey just begins.
oh, that's when the rubber hits the road.
And I think that you guys both pointed to this, and it's so important. It's the network. It's your network. It's your network of your contractors and your service providers and your real estate agent that you know, love, and trust. And it's your network of the other investors and the people that you can learn from. Like it's such a, it's so cliche, but it's such a relationship business, and it really is. And the guys that have the good relationships, and the guys that are the good guys and girls, whatever, 2026, those people are the ones that succeed. You have to have grit, and you have to have a heart. Like people will sniff out a fake in this business quick. You know what? They stink. So the guys that have a heart, the guys that have grit, and that's how you build your network and your relationships. You guys are so right about that.
I just want to say aloha to Rhonda. Looks like she's tuning in from Nichole's Facebook page, but she does say this is great. Learn channel as a landlord. I just also want to say that Gus did a great job answering that question, because Daniel did put on that post. When you're tackling any big job, know the cost of materials, research the market rate for the same work, and remember, every dollar saved is a dollar earned, right?
Yes.
So I think Gus hit all those points on his answer to that.
If you guys don't mind, I just want to address, somebody just asked about, with the cleaning, like what defines clean.
Oh, where is that?
As far as the appliances.
Yeah.
So I just want to point out, what defines clean is what they signed as clean. So in my leases, there's pictures of the outside and inside of every single appliance, the bathroom, detailed pictures of every angle of the bathroom, every room, the kitchen, every room. So what defines clean is that's the condition they got the apartment in. So of course I'm not going to subtract for normal wear and tear. If there's nail holes because they put up pictures, that's normal wear and tear. Right, but not, leaving garbage behind is not normal wear and tear. Leaving holes in my walls is not normal wear and tear, right? So we have the before and after pictures that I also gave the judge. This is the condition. They can't say that wasn't it. That they got their signature dated on those pictures, right? So that goes with the lease. I just wanted to add that in.
I just want to give a shout out to also Brady Morgan, who's here in the chat. Go check out Brady's YouTube channel. I put his link in the chat. He also just came out with a book. It's on Amazon. It's called Never Sell. So go check that out. And also I see Brandon here from Build Wealth Flows. He's my regular guest on Tuesday. He does build to rent out in Texas. So go check out his YouTube channel also.
Hey, Mark,
go ahead.
do you mind if I ask Dan a question?
Go ahead, man.
So Dan, so here's the part where I tend to struggle a little bit. So so for someone like you have passion for the game. So I think there's different type of investors. There's investors that really have passion for the game. They love it. Like it's not a it's not something like the stock market. You put the money in and you just watch it. This is like something they like to do. They get some type of, in a sick way that this is being said, they get some type of enjoyment by accomplishing things. So I'll have conversations with investors like that, and the conversations are great. Then I get around, and I'm very bad with facial expressions. So then I'll get around with these, oh man, these half-ass investors, and they'll be talking their nonsense and their BS, and I can't. Yeah, it drives me up the wall, and I just mentally check out. Like, I'm a passionate person, especially when I get amped up. You start asking me the right question, you could tell, hey man, Gus is really getting into it. How do you get around people like them and be able to at least be civil? I can't even be. My face will give everything away. So how do you do that?
You know, my wife and my kids tell me I'm too abrupt sometimes. But you know, I don't know how to do anything other than that's who I am, right? And I'm not going to apologize for it. The truth is that when I hear a landlord tell me that how bad their tenants are, what I hear is that they suck at what they do. When I hear a landlord tell me how they hate their tenants, I'd hear a landlord that's a slum landlord, right? Because if we truly do this business the right way, we have the first thing we understand is that we're providing housing for people, and as a result of that, us providing that product, we have a massive moral and legal obligation, right? We have the obligation of providing a clean, safe environment for anyone that lives in our buildings, right? All properties, all single family homes, whatever that is, right? And if you're not willing to comply with that moral and legal obligation, don't bother getting into the business. It's not the tenant's fault that you suck as a landlord. It's not the tenant's fault that the roof was leaking, or that the sidewalks are cracked, or that there's low water pressure, or that there's lead paint, or there's galvanized plumbing. That's not the tenant's fault. That's your fault, right? It's not the tenant's fault that you chose to take the easy way out and just said, you know what, he's got the money, so let me just take his check and forget what, I'll believe whatever he told me. The last landlord sucked. It's the last landlord's fault. No, it's not the tenant's fault that you allowed a bad tenant in your property. It's your fault. So when there's something that goes wrong with a tenant, the first thing I ask myself is, what did I do wrong? When I have a problem with a confrontation tenant, first thing I do is I go to the file and I look up my notes. What happened during that interview? What did I not see in the rental application documentation? I take the blame. So, the truth is that I don't want to be around those people. And I pretty much bluntly tell them, bro, I don't know why you would hate your tenants, man. I love my tenants. They paid for my kids' colleges. They bought my house. They paid for my truck. They paid for the dinners I go on, the vacations I go on. Why would I hate my tenants? I love my tenants. And if they don't have that understanding, move on.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. As a person, I'm gonna try to get better. Especially when I'm hearing, I tend to hear these stories and I'm like rolling my eyes, like, yo, bro, like. And another thing, when you got the newbies who are coming to you, and they don't have to listen and do everything that you say, that's totally understand. You are coming to me, and I am giving some advice, but you don't have to do what I'm saying. It's when you give them advice and you put a lot of time and effort into them, and then they go do some stupid shit and they come back and like, Gus, man, I did this. I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to understand that.
I just went through that with a relative of mine. I told her everything she needed to do. She did everything totally opposite. She's now losing the house. And my dad asked me to speak to her. Well, she called me up and I said, I can't help you. I must have spent a total of 12 to 15 hours with you, and you did everything differently. I can't help you. So now my dad calls me and asks me if I talk to him. I said no, because I find it very disrespectful if you did absolutely nothing. You did everything the opposite way around, right? It's disrespectful for my time, right? And so my argument is, you can't help those people that don't want to help themselves, that are too stubborn to take the advice. Now, I will say this: the way I do things doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right way for you to do it. And I do a live on YouTube with Chris Haskins every single Sunday night. Gus, you know who he
Yep.
is.
Yep.
Chris and I do this business totally different from each other, but it works for Chris in his market pace with his personality trait. And what works for me would not work for Chris. But there are fundamentals that are all the same. The
Mhm.
foundation of building that home of our business is all the same, right? It's how we design the house that sits on the foundation different, but the foundation still remains the same.
Facts.
Yeah, I
That's the
think that's
beauty. It's the
no, no, go
beauty
ahead.
of real estate in general. It's the beauty of real estate in general. There's a million ways to do it. Nobody really is right or wrong. You find out what works for you and your personality and what path you're going to take.
I love
Yeah,
it.
I think that's kind of to Brady's point. He said, I'm not a great landlord. That's why I've tended to use pro property manager instead. Focus on my strengths.
Smart.
Thanks.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't want to take up too much of your guys' time. I'm glad you guys jumped on today. It's always a lot of fun, the live streams, but I do want to dig in maybe a few more before we wrap things up. There was a couple, like I said, reels on Dan's page. There was one that kind of stood out to me. It was about why I pay my contractor within 24 hours. Can you kind of touch on that a little bit?
You're going deep into my stuff.
Oh, that's what I'm here for, you know?
Stalker.
I appreciate that. Um, when I have a good contractor, plumber, electrician, painter, so if they're in New York, I'm going to put eyes on it. If it's in New Jersey, my brother will put eyes on it before we pay him. If it's in Florida, we have what we call expediters that go and put eyes on the property and the work before we pay them. But I will deposit that money into their account, if not that same day, the next day. And I'm not delaying putting eyes on it. I'm constantly talking to them. You're going to be done on Friday. I'm going to either, if it's in New York, I'll be on that job site on Friday. Right. Oh, I would have been there also on Wednesday, so I'll know if he's telling me the truth or not. Um, the truth is that they it puts me on the top of the list, especially when it's an emergency. I go to the top of the list because they get paid. It's they're not chasing me for their money. And the truth is that they've got payroll and they've got time and they've got car insurance and they've got bills. You don't, these people are constantly complaining about contractors, but when you got good guys that are showing up and doing the work that they're supposed to do and not cutting the corners and using the right material, why do you want to screw around with their money? It doesn't make sense. And there's so many people that we use, right? We have the AC heating guys, we have roofers, we have painters, we have plumbers. So I'll call a plumber. I had an issue with a plumb. I had an issue in I had a water main break. Called up the plumber. I said, Gus, this is where I'm at. His name happens to be Gus. He says, you know what, Dan? He goes, I was on my way to another job, but I got to pass by your job. Let me stop there first. He got there in 10 minutes, right? Calls up the other job and says, hey, I'm going to be about 5 hours late. Got my job done. And that same night, he didn't leave my house until literally that property until 9 o'clock at night. And he was still going to go do that other job at 9 o'clock. But he got paid that night directly into his account.
It's about treating people right. I mean, you have such a good business plan. It's about, you can see you treat people from your heart. You treat people right. Your tenants, your network, your service providers, treat people right. You're giving.
You got to treat them right, especially, the other advantage that gives me is that my tenants ain't waiting long times to get things done.
Yeah.
When I need a contractor or electrician, right? They're not waiting days. It's done because I get put on top of the list.
Happy tenants, happy life. Isn't that the saying?
Pretty much.
All right. So this last one, I kind of wrap things up with. Maybe Nichole and Gus can also chime in, and maybe if they believe the same thing. But This one was the biggest lie on social media. So before Dan puts his thoughts in there, Nichole and Gus, you have any thoughts on that? Like the big lies on social media that's going around right now?
The market is crashing. I do a lot of videos educating just the regular people that are out there on different real estate things. And I was thinking, I'm always trying to brainstorm what video I want to do next. And the market is crashing. And at least up here in Maine, it might be leveling out, but I think that you were still better off buying investment property last year than you are today. You're better off 2 years ago than you are today. So there's no sense in waiting, is what I think. And that's the message that I'm getting out to the people that want to dip their toes in. My real investors and developers know that there is, sees life by the balls kind of guys. But for the people that are waiting, or waiting on lower rates, or waiting on the right stage in life, the right stage was yesterday.
For me myself, and I get bad on social media because I'll see something and I feel like I got to say something, and I want them to come back to my page and see what real estate investing to a degree really looks like, and that's just my own opinion. But yesterday, and I bring that up because yesterday I saw myself typing a whole bunch of stuff to a few guys as far as them saying that investing in real estate, if you have 40-50 doors, you can't make real money or something along those lines. It was some foolishness. I don't know. I think it's some of these TikTok things and people just want to get popular. That's what I really be thinking it is. But in real estate investing, the goal is not to go ahead and not the goal. The realistic thing about real estate investing, you don't get rich year one. This is something that you continue to build on. And as time passes, and Dan is a great example, he's been investing since the 80s, and he dropped some bigger numbers before. And granted, it's New York, but think about it. Year one and year five, and this is just for me, it's been a big difference as far as what my cash flow looks like. Now, if that's only been 5 years, what is 10? Year 15, year 20, what does that look like? So that tells me my money, my cash flow, my equity, my wealth is going to go up as time goes on. In the meantime, I'm still working. I'm still being a real estate agent, and I'm still making money other ways to make sure I have active money. While my passive money is great, and could I stop everything and live off of it? We'll be living a little snug. You know what I mean? I would have to watch my dollars, as they get out. But that's not what the goal is. The goal is to make enough money to put back into my buildings. If something happens, we're covered with that. Maybe pay some expenses I have, get that situated, but let that build up as time goes on, and continue to make my active money. I think people think you get into real estate investing, you quit your job, and then you start spending the cash flow money, and that really bugs me out to even think. Or you get into real estate investing and you should be automatically see large returns. You should be making 50, 100 grand a month. That's not if you think real estate investing is that, you're in the wrong game. But if you do think real estate investing is something you continue to sharpen your sword, you get better at, you acquire properties the right way, you're doing your maintenance the right way, you're educating yourself and evolving, you're going to have a very good, successful career in real estate. And Dan can contest to that. Mark can contest to that. We all could contest to that. So the guys you hear on social media that are starting a sentence in their reel saying real estate's a scam, or you can't get rich in long-term rentals, they're full of shit. And they're looking for you to comment, like me, to comment on the and view their reel so they can make money off of social media.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. The more controversial you are, the more money they make.
Yeah.
And that's why I appreciate the guys that are not doing that. I appreciate, for example, Zuber. I appreciate the Dans. I appreciate the Henry Washingtons. I appreciate the guys that are really giving out the core, great information that, anytime I see their reel or their YouTubes or whatever, I'm clicking it as soon as possible because I want to get better. I don't want to listen to the gurus. I refuse to listen to gurus.
All right. Before we let Dan wrap it up with his thoughts on that, or his reel on the biggest lie on social media, everyone, there is all their links, social media handles in the chat. So please go subscribe, follow them there. There's also the landlordcornerstore.com. And I believe, are you still doing the lives on Sunday nights, you said, Dan, on YouTube?
Yeah, on YouTube at 7:30 with
Okay.
Chris Haskins.
All right, so everyone go check them out there. And then Dan, wrap us up with your reel about the biggest lie on social media.
There's just so many. Um, there's just so many. But Nichole and Gus hit on two of the biggest without a doubt. One of the biggest lies, I just put up a post about this, I don't know, maybe a month ago or so. I saw something, an influencer talking about how owning your own property is like it's a big liability, and it angers me because everybody I know that has developed wealth owns their own property, right? And every single one of those wealthy people have at one time used that property to leverage it, either as a home equity line, to use as a bridge loan to renovate another property or buy that other property, or to send their kids to college, right? The one thing I do know with those responsible people is they never leverage their home to go buy a summer house or to go buy furniture or to go buy a new car or put in a pool, right? They use it for things that are going to create additional asset, right? So I guess what I'm saying is look at people's lifestyles. If they're driving up in a Porsche, and a lot of these people don't even own those Porsches, they rent them. If they're coming into like a 10,000 square foot house, most people are not living that lifestyle. That's all for show, right? And like Gus said, you're not going to get wealthy with this business overnight. And if that's your intent, don't get into the business. There's other businesses that you can get into. Don't believe the hype, and understand that there's nothing passive about real estate. There is nothing passive about real estate that everyone else is selling. So if you're not willing to do the work, do the sacrifice, just don't do it.
All right, I love that. Dan, Nichole, thanks for doing this. The live streams are always fun. Gus, thanks for setting this up. Any final words before you wrap it up for any of you?
I'm good. I want to thank you all for inviting me. Gus, all of you, thank you so much. I enjoyed this today. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
All right, everyone that is in the chat, if you are in the school community, don't forget there is a new accountability call that just started, the contractor's call. So if you have any contractor questions or want to bring in an inspection report, jump on over there and you can get your questions answered. But everyone else, I will see you folks tomorrow, 7:45 Pacific in the morning with my regular guest, Cody Davis. So thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the weekend.
Enjoy the day.
Thank you.